Hi everyone, and welcome to day 24 of this artificial intelligence project we've been working on. Quick recap. Yesterday we added support for one more visualization, which was bubbles. And we kind of like used that to analyze Tesla's career portal page to get a sense of what openings they have. Today, I had a chance to add yet a new visualization, which is what is called a word cloud. Which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So yeah, let's take a look at that, and I have a couple other things to mention. Right, so yeah, the word cloud. So as a start, we can kind of like take a look at our default data sets, which is Iris, and we can see what are like the categories that are available just by displaying the labels, and then we could potentially map the size to one of them. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not, but I personally like word clouds, especially for things like communicating information, like sharing something in Twitter that looks interesting or whatever. It's a little bit more visually appealing. So kind of like that's what I work on, and you can also see the code, which I feel like it's kind of like really nice because all this new visualization was actually developed kind of like on top of this project, right? Like I didn't have to. Well, I did check in the code, but it was all parameterized based on adding a new visualization script. So yeah, this is the script. It's again built on D3, and why not? And then the other part that I want to show is kind of like, let's try to do this with an actual data set, right? And the other data set that we have been playing with is the Apple stock data set, right? And so we can import that. And now we have this particular data set. And again, this is just the Apple stock trading volume and price over a period of time, right? So what we can do is, again, we're going to use the word cloud visualization. And in this case, I'm going to drag the date for the label. And I'm going to suppose that we're kind of like trying to figure out like, what have been the high volume days of Apple stock, right? And by volume meaning like, how much days in which a lot of things, in which the Apple stock has been bought and sold a lot. So we can also drag the volume on the size of the word cloud. And yeah, this is what we get. So you can see here that there's like particularly, we see in Apple stock represented, which have been perhaps like some of the most interesting days in terms of volume. And actually, while I was looking at this one really struck. I was curious, so I searched what happened on 2007. Let's see. Yeah, 2007, 01, 09. So, for instance, here on Apple's, apparently on January 9, 2007, it seems like this was the actual release of the iPhone. I don't know, some of you might be actually more familiar with Apple stock, but at least from this search, it actually seems like Apple might have launched the iPhone on this particular day, which makes it quite a relevant event. And I don't know if there's like a couple other interesting ones here, to look at. But, what is interesting is that, this particular, visualization, it's kind of like basically providing us some useful information of what have been like the key moments perhaps on Apple's history. And again, the launch of the iPhone, it was probably one of those that, like it was worth mentioning, and also it seems that it had quite some stock volume at that time, at least from this visualization. All right, the other couple things that I want to mention is there's this, and I think I might have mentioned it, GPT-3, which is a new model from OpenAI. And I don't remember why exactly I landed again on this. This is quite old. It's from June 11. It's a post. But basically, I think I was kind of like thinking on terms of, okay, what other models, are worth considering. And obviously GPT-3 is a language model that got a lot of press with good reason that OpenAI added support for. And yeah, so I actually try to use their API, but it's not available yet. So basically, I register myself on the waiting list. And you need to, the idea here would be that perhaps there is some way of making OpenAI's API available on the application that we're building. I haven't fully thought this through, but one of the nice things about OpenAI is that of this particular GPT-3 model is that you can give it text and it would output text. And maybe in some other video we should do with a little bit more detail, kind of like review this particular AI model. But yeah, I was just trying to get into the waiting list, so I filled out this form and then I submitted. That's it. So I don't think there is currently a way of actually trying it out unless you're a researcher, and why not? But I figure it wouldn't hurt to be on the waiting list. And then I also took a quick look at this TensorFlow.js example, which we've done in the past. I think I've shown it in the past, which is basically just training a model over the iris dataset, which is the model that we just showed at the beginning of this video. And I took a look a little bit at the code. The code looks very similar to TensorFlow code for Python. And yeah, so I took a look at that, and then I also took a look at another interesting model, which is also as part of the TFJS TensorFlow.js examples repo. I end up arriving to this repo called TFJS models, and this one basically comes with a lot of pre-trained models that we could potentially use. And the model that they have there's one called it's basically called Mobilenet. And Mobilenet comes from I understand, I believe, from the ImageNet dataset, but it's kind of like a model that got optimized for mobile use. So it's kind of like a subset, like optimized version of the actual, full model. And I kind of look into this, and then you can see that they have like the JS kind of like main script, and you can load the model and then run it through some predictions. I didn't got to the point to actually running any predictions. I'm just looking at the code, but it definitely looks interesting. This is obviously something that we can integrate. The one from OpenAI probably will have to just wait until I don't even know when. All right, and then comments. Thanks for the comments. I think the first one is the visualizations are getting quite interesting. I think this one, it's also similar to yesterday's. It's already showing useful stuff that perhaps we wouldn't be interested. Actually, the other one that I took a look at, kind of like on just prediction, it was I wasn't aware what's happening on some of the other ones, and one of the ones that I pick is 1999-09-28, I believe. Or no, I picked a different one. I took a look at a couple of different kind of like high volume ones. And the other one that I found that is interesting is on 1997, which I think it should be somewhere in here, maybe not. But yeah, just to this point, this comment is getting definitely quite interesting to be able to get some data and just figure out just interesting patterns and why not. And yeah, definitely the one from today, like the iPhone launch on 2007, it's pretty relevant. But I'm sure we'll find out like a couple other ones that are interesting ones. Thanks for the encouragement. And comment from Carlos is like, okay, like just curious of how big can these data sets be? And yeah, this is definitely a good question. Currently, if we look at this data set that we were playing with today, we can just count the number of entries. So we have about 3,800 entries, and we have about 10,000 total, because just kind of like an easy way of counting. Maybe I can just count them like this. So there's about 15,000 entries on this data set. So 15,000 is definitely not obviously considered big data for this particular data set. But it's also quite interesting that, it's a data set that is not necessarily super small. So, handling 15,000 records, so far I haven't seen any problems, rendering these data sets or just processing them with this architecture. At some point, maybe we'll hit that issue, but so far, for the data sets that I played with, and I think definitely 10,000, 20,000 records is non-trivial. I mean, it's pretty common to have hundreds of thousands of records and maybe even millions. But it's definitely that we're not just playing with Iris. Again, this particular data set has 10,000 items. But yeah, definitely I haven't thought that through. I definitely believe kind of like long-term that TensorFlow.js and tools perhaps like Danfo.js that use they basically use your GPU using WebGL on your browser should in theory scale to some degree. Now you won't be able to process, say, like terabytes of data with this particular architecture. You will need other tools. But also, like there's a path of scaling these the data sets from just, maybe a few million or whatever to running it on a proper server with a GPU. So that's an architecture that it's possible with Node.js and using still TensorFlow.js. I haven't explored it, but it seems like the good news is that is not a dead end. And, like at some point we could potentially also add support for, like processing distributed data sets on the server. I think that would be really, really hard. And not just hard, but also time consuming. So it's probably not even close to the near future. But again, kind of like the goal of this project is to make AI more accessible. So most people won't have like huge data sets. I even think that 10,000 or even 100,000 records is probably a stretch. I think kind of like the data analysis that we did yesterday, where you only have like a few hundred records, is probably closer to what most people might actually have in practice. But yeah, I think the question is just really great because at some point we'll have to deal with that. All right, well, thanks so much for just joining in today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow, and have a great week.